Welcome to Chanel Connects, the Venice Biennale edition.
It's important to be free.
So who was the fool who didn't recognize it all that time ago?
Yeah. I think it is seduction. Oh, right, absolutely.
Yeah. Just another woman trying to survive.
So who of them is lying?
I wish that were the case.
Well, let's face the terror of the new work then.
And this is what art is so good at.
Do you prepare?
No.
In this season of Chanel Connects, we've taken up residence in Italy to go to the center of the art world. Listen in to the artists, curators, thinkers, and makers behind the Venice Biennale, the world's most important exhibition of contemporary art, now in its 60th edition. Each of our guests is focused on what matters most and what happens next. I'm Yana Peel, Global Head of Arts and Culture at Chanel. Thank you for connecting with us.
Could you tell where my head was at when you found me? Me and you went to hell and back just to find peace.
The poet E. Temple Thurston urged everyone to visit Venice. He said, "You've got to see a city of slender towers and white domes sleeping in the water like a mass of water lilies." In this episode, we meet another poet fascinated by water and the connections it creates. Julien Creuzet is one of the most talked about artists exhibiting this year in Venice. Born in a suburb of Paris and raised in Martinique, he's the first French Caribbean artist to represent France at the Biennale. Julien meets with Tate curator Alvin Li in the opulent surroundings of the Palazzo Pisani Moretta, overlooking the Grand Canal.
Hi, Julien.
Hi.
I think we should perhaps start by introducing ourselves. So my name is Alvin Li. I'm Curator of International Art at Tate Modern.
My name is Julien Creuzet, and I'm a visual artist.
Major congratulations on the French Pavilion.
Thank you.
What does representing France mean to you?
It is really important. It is, in a certain way, a responsibility, but I just would like to be free and to be what I would like to do, to be a French Caribbean Afro-descendant, and what I can keep with me, with my energy, with my identity, and what I would like to share for real with people. And my goal is just share more beauty, imaginary, and people can have like a particular experience. Maybe this experience can be immersive.
I think you totally achieved that because freedom was definitely on my mind walking through the sculpture environments and in the pavilion. Yeah.
It's important to be free. The object needs to be free. The history needs to be free to reinvent. You can write again the history, for example.
I think your work touches on very painful, haunting history of displacement and migration, but also intimacies of the continents through water. Can you speak a little bit about the kind of role of water in this pavilion and in your work in general?
The word of water, it's the spirit of the pavilion, but in the same time have like ambiguity. We don't know if we are in the like a forest or if we like inside a submarine forest. And that it is a strange ambiguity because I'm work and I'm share like a certain density of object, of sculpture in installation group, and that need to question the bodies, how the bodies of the public can move, can position it all the time for see, for hear, for smell.
Your thinking around water is influenced by some French Caribbean thinkers. Can you speak a little bit about that?
I have many important thinkers and writers and poets. The first one important is Aimé Césaire, of course, because he opened the idea of the identity a black person can exist in the beginning of the 20th century. The second one is Edouard Glissant. He gives like some beauty and perspective, how it's possible to live together, how you can use the metaphor, for example, of archipelago for explain the relation we can have together on this type of situation.
I know for the French Pavilion, you had your press conference earlier, a few months ago, at the former house of Edouard Glissant, right? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
For me, it was important to have many identity to be French person, and he can to be a French person can be from Caribbean island, from Martinique, from Guadeloupe, from French Guyana. And symbolically, I would like to move out of the center, the political center, and go to Martinique, in the place of when the thinking can be free. And I think the House of Glisson can represent this type of situation, a place where the thinking can emancipate, the thinking can speak about how it's possible to think about the future. Mm. Martinique is like a concentration of many identity. England, for example, and France make a war for a long time for who is the owner, who can use this land like a property, and that it is interesting. It creates like a specific language, Creole, mixed with English, French, Portuguese, Spanish, with African language, with the Caribbean, Arawak, the Taínos population. And this place is where you can find like an Afro-diasporic person, and it is a very complex context. But in the same time, it can be beautiful, and this place create like a singular culture in the music, in the art, in the movement of the bodies.
You were talking about Creole, the kind of hybridity of Creole language, and I think that's very much in your work too. You work across all these different mediums, you know, the skeletal sculptures, and there's also sound and then moving image. Where did it all begin? Was there a particular medium that you started your artistic practice with?
I start when I was teenager with idea make music, wrote lyrics for maybe make hip-hop, rap music. But that opens the idea how it's possible maybe wrote more free text, and all of these texts can be like a poetry. And that opens the idea of how hard a specific form, sculpture, installation, video, can be in relation. For example, when I produce an object, I produce a sculpture, sometimes this object is very silent or immobile physically. But when you make this object in relation with music or with video, it can start to give you some other type of information. I like the idea when, for example, you hear a sound and it can affect what you see. When you smell a perfume, it can affect the experience you can have inside the pavilion, for example.
Almost like a synesthesia. One sensory perception triggers another. Like a sound triggers your feeling of a smell or a vision.
Immersive place, it is important. Very long, we think how it need to be silence, and we go in the museum, we see very silent sculpture. And I would like to change this type of perspective, just open the possibility how it can be like physically an experience. You need to move, for example. And for me, the relation we need to have with an object, it's turn around. It's not just look at one point of views, because which point of views can be like a possibility to transform your perception.
Is there a particular story to your ring?
You speak about that one?
Yes.
It's like a lumpy seashell. Have some in the Caribbean Ocean, and it's like the first brief instrument. And the idea or the mythology of the seashell, it can put out the bad energy, put out the bad spirit. And I like this idea we can have with some natural object.
I mean, there's so many different kinds of materials in your work too. I'm curious about the setup of your studio. Can you describe your studio setting for us?
My studio look like a secret kitchen. And for me, it's not important to speak about how I'm organized myself with my team inside the studio, because I think art is for people start to think and dream. I like play with the idea, what you see, it's not the reality. For example, I like the image, have you been inside the Liberty Statue in New York?
You know what? All these years I lived in the US, I've never seen the Statue of Liberty myself.
What you see in outside and what the statues look like, it's really different inside. Inside, it's a very precarity construction, and that it is really interesting. Sometimes the perspective people can have about art, it's like a magical tour or a magical representation. What you see, it's not obligated true. It's the idea of the cinema and the fiction. For example, when you see this type of image of this landscape, the relation between the sound not exactly need to be similar and don't need to be on the same way. You can make like a confrontation between two universes. What you see, what you hear can create like a chaotic relation, and that can be interesting for me an experience.
Mm-hmm. The theme of the main exhibition of the Venice Biennale is Foreigners Everywhere by the curator Adriano Pedrosa. Can you talk a little about how has this theme informed your pavilion?
The title of the biennale is interesting, and I think it's how it's possible to inverse or reverse the polarity of the earth, for example, the north and the south. That it is maybe in a certain point of view interesting when we are in Europe. In the same time, we just meet this week. And that it is interesting. In a certain way, I'm foreigner for you, and you are foreigner for me. Mm. What is your reality and how you negotiate with your identity, how you negotiate with the emotion of your identity?
Wow, that's a tough question. So I kind of grew up in China, Singapore, and the US. I moved to the US when I was around 15. I'm queer, and I think I spent many years trying to assimilate and let go of my Chinese identity. And I mean, identity is a fiction, which is something I've learned so much from thinking about queer theory, performativity. And I think these different forms of otherness have always kind of informed my effective approach to being in the world. And it's a fiction, and I feel like it's constantly being rewritten from these different experiences.
And when you visit exhibition, do you question your identity?
I feel like I don't have a fixed identity that I hold on to in any kind of experiences. Mm-hmm. I think being in between space of all these othernesses, that's where I feel the most comfortable. I do feel like every time I come to Venice, I'm in this fiction where this art world just goes island hopping and palazzo hopping mm-hmm. water. Did you have time to kind of see some of the other pavilions?
Not for the moment, but during the time I was in Venice, I visit many museums. We go to Ecole Museum with my friends, see some old object, old reality about Venice and Italian history. We go to Palazzo Ducale, maybe see Neptune statue in the stair. And you can see this statue inside the pavilion, in reverse, in the last room, inside the ocean.
It's beautiful, yeah. So we're sitting inside Palazzo Pisani Moretta. Could you describe this environment for us?
We have too much place for to be two persons in this room, and that it is really particular, and I think we are very lucky to have this type of experience. I think this place, this architecture, speak about another type of temporality, and I like to mention when we are, and I like to mention we are in 2024. All the time I think that it is important to fix a certain type of temporality for understand. I don't have a particular relation with this type of place, but it can be like a situation for discuss specifically in Venice, because Venice have a long history with art, with beauty, since one 100 years, maybe a bit more. It started in 1884, I think, the first biennial.
Since you're talking about temporality, I love the temporal aspect of your work. My question is, do you spend more time thinking about the past or the future, or is that there's not really a distinction for you?
I live my present. And for understand my moment, I need to know more about my history, the history we can share together of this planet, for example, and different specific situation of the past. The past is like give some perspective for live the present and try to make some proposal. When I give one installation and I make one exhibition and I produce like a soundtrack, a sculpture, or a performance, I do it in my present. And in the same time, maybe it can be like a suggestion for the future.
Speaking of proposal, could you describe the proposal that is your French Pavilion to us in perhaps one sentence?
I would like mix different temporality, different localization, and make like a new geolocalization or a new geo-historical localization. It's this reason I'm used, for example, monument from Paris, monument from Venice. I'm use different language, and I'm try to open my identity and say, okay, I have all this information inside me, and if I'm try to describe and take this line or this line, maybe I can create a specific place, a specific moment for have like unique experience.
Well, it's been amazing to meet you finally in person. I would love to visit your studio one day, if that's possible.
Yes, Alvin. Yes, we can do like a sharing moment soon in Paris. If you are in town, just let me know and we can organize this type of visit. Thank you so much for these interviews, and it's really important for me to have this possibility to share the emotion of my work and the French Pavilion for the 60th edition of the Venice Biennale.
Thank you.
Thank you to Julien and Alvin for hosting. And we have a bit more. Alvin asked Julien if he'd share some of his poetry after we wrapped, and we were lucky enough to capture this.
I can just share one lyrics of the show. L'élan nuit trivée, même vieille idée, rivage car ressassé, personne peut effacer. L'élan nuit trivée, même vieille idée, rivage car ressassé, personne peut effacer. Caravelle, Caravage, mouillage au large, cannibale, derrière feuillage, sur la plage, sabotage. The part of Creole say, when the night arrive, the same idea continue to move like the movement of the wave.
What a wonderful behind-the-scenes exclusive. Thank you again to Julien for being so generous with his time and his words. Julien talked about rewriting our histories, but what about our futures? We asked some influential visitors to the Biennale, if an AI could continue the work of a dead artist, who would you choose and why? My choices would probably be Helen Frankenthaler and Hieronymus Bosch. Let's see what our guests have to say.
If I have to choose an artist whose work would continue with AI, I would choose Felix González Torres, because I think his interest in time and in light fits very well what we can see in Venice and experience again and again.
It would be an artist I would be intrigued by and that probably died early. There's an artist like Ana Mendieta, Cuban artist that did a lot of works related to performance with the body and the feminine body. So it was avant-garde kind of feminist artist?
That's a good question. I mean, first of all, do I want that to happen? But anyway, I don't have a choice. I suppose it would be really interesting to choose an artist whose career was cut short. And then you could kind of take your pick. You could think about Basquiat or even Raphael or Francesca Woodman if you could have AI doing something interesting with photography. So, artists that had far too short a career, I would love to see what they would have done as their career developed.
Thank you so much to all of our contributors who joined us in Venice for the 60th edition of the Biennale. Thank you for listening to Chanel Connects, the Venice Biennale edition. Now, the number 5 is very important in the House of Chanel, so please consider giving us 5 stars on whatever platform you're listening to us. Please follow the show so you don't miss an episode. To hear more from remarkable artists, listen back to the Chanel Connects archive, where you'll find conversations between Jennifer Packer, Hans-Ulrich Obrist, and Arthur Jaffa, who won the Venice Golden Lion in 2019. They talk about what makes an artwork successful and the social, political, and historical ways their work can be viewed. Next time on Chanel Connects, we hear from 2 old friends and veterans of the Biennale, renowned South African artist William Kentridge and free-thinking curator Carolyn Christoph Bakargiev. Together, they explore the terror of unveiling a new work, where the art world is in for big changes, and the complex and occasionally tense relationship between an artist and a curator.
Oh, I say, here's a perfect piece for you, and you say, yes, it's perfect, but it's wrong.
Do I do that?
Yes, you do.
Oh,
You do.
Next week, find out why a bit of conflict can actually be a good thing.